Yeah, and everyone said the report is okay. So I don't see why people should be surprised that he's been consistent to that extent. I think what happened shortly after that is politics came in, and then there is an issue of supremacy when it comes to the persons in the Senate. I don't think much has changed in as far as the president is concerned and his focus on the 9 issues that were raised on matters BBI, this being one of them. And I think him saying the same thing, being consistent to that extent,
yes,
should tell us the direction this thing is going. Another thing that needs clarity is there is this assumption that the parameters that we're using when it comes to the basis for sharing revenue is just about population. Population is one of them. There is even fiscal responsibility. There is the aspect of even
health,
landmass. There is the aspect of poverty. All those things are taken into consideration. It's not just about population. When you talk about, be it the CRA formula, be it the formula that the committee came up with ultimately, be it Sakaja's formula, all of those formulas have those parameters. Because remember, when the Supreme Court gave an advisory on whether the report, whatever the Commission on Revenue allocation does is binding to the Senate and the National Assembly, the Supreme Court was also clear that you cannot ignore a constitutional commission. So whatever they come up with is what is amended. And the parameters they have used, if you look at all the amendments that have been proposed, they align themselves to the proposal by the CRA. So when we talk about population and we just look at it as if it's just about the population, there's nothing else that is being considered when it comes to the so many formulas that have been proposed by so many senators. I think we are confusing our people, and they are assuming if you don't have that population and there is poverty in your area, and the index is such that it can be told that you have poverty in here, then you will not get that revenue. So to me, I think we need clarity on the parameters, the specific basis upon which this revenue is being shared or proposed to be shared, so that Kenyans can understand where it's coming from.
All right. Kamal, would want to hear your view as regards, the president declaration of his stand. Like it has been, most of the time, you've left people second guessing. In fact, you've had Sakaja say on the floor of the House, I know the president's heart, it doesn't support this formula. But then the president comes out clearly to just tell us, you know what, money must follow population and, provision of services.
Thank you, JJ. And I'll just crown it to what my colleague has said. And actually has put it in a better way than we could have done. I said that the president has been very consistent in what he wants and what he wishes that people get. Not the one who is holding every other person's vote. And the issue of Sakaja, with humility, the president put it today. Let each one of you, where you are, you get your own share. He mentioned few villages in the city, and he said, if you live in Korogosho, let's know someone, and you actually hold unaenda choo ya ile ya nini. In that, at that point, the president was in the lowest, and he was so humble in telling these people who are fighting supremacy here and there that let these poor people get their share. If you've got enough for yourself, these people have nothing. Let them have their things. So for me, and what Wakili has said, I'm with the president. I've always been with the president. Right. And the issue of Sakaja, Sakaja was not where the president was today. And he has been using the name of president unnecessarily. With his supremacy and other what they are calling Team Kenya, I think it was not good for him to put president in there. But the president came out today and said, please, please, Kenyans, and dear Senate, give these poor Kenyans their share.
All right.
Thank you.
Kagoni, was that jibe about waste, polythene paper, and of course, where it happens, was that jibe aimed directly at Senator Johnson Sakaja, who's really been, at the forefront when it comes to the acrimony we've seen in the Senate this past few sittings?
Well, of course, I am sure that he must have taken it very personal when he had to, and especially because the example was actually using his own county, so to speak. But even before I get there, may I say something that I've said here before, that I hope the intensity we are finding in this conversation would actually be the same intensity when we discuss about production, because now we are talking about consumption. Rarely do we hear conversations about production. Who really bakes the cake that we are now even talking about how we want to share and all that? And I hope people will be very consistent when we come to that debate. In the same way that we are saying that we consider regions in the same way, then in terms of contribution, can we also prioritize the same way? Perhaps that should actually shape the conversation. But having said that, I think the president was very strategic today to say what he said. I listened to him carefully and even giving that example.
Yes.
It has been a while for him. He has been very quiet. He hasn't even said anything in regard to the revenue sharing bill. And he came out clearly to say that he supports the population as the main thing. However, and I want just to connect something that has been said here, because I think there is a way the population factor has been used to overshadow the other factors that have been used.
The other parameters of...
The other parameters that have been used, because the other units in that bill, it's not just that. And in fact, just to give this example, and I remember we were even saying that the other time. I mean, is the cost of taking water to Isiolo the same as that one of Kiambu? I mean, is the cost of giving some of these services in regions like Mandela, is it the same as doing the same in Nyeri?
Okay.
I mean, we also need to consider that, and let's not really just the population parameter overshadow everything else.
Okay.
Like, it's basically about people and where they are, because the money is not just coming directly as cash; it's actually coming in form of service. So maybe there are areas that we really need also to remember that the cost of actually giving that service may not be equal compared to another region.
All right. When this is the question of consensus, because when the Senate took a break or adjourned last week, the whole thing was about, in fact, it's Monday this week, they went to look for consensus. In fact, a team was formed.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about consensus, and then the president comes out clearly and says, this is what I favor when we talk about that basis formula. Will there be consensus then if this is the president of the Republic of Kenya saying, you know what, I favor that formula?
I don't think he talked about any specific formula.
Okay.
Because all those formulas are trying to address the same thing, if you ask me. And let us be honest with ourselves. And I think it's time Kenyans told each other the truth. The truth is that Article 138 of the Constitution is very clear. To be president, you need 50% of the votes plus one more vote. And over and above that, you need 25% of the votes cast in a minimum of 24 counties.
All right.
That is our problem right there. Those guys who are seeking the presidency in 2022, what will you tell Mandera and Isiolo when you go campaigning there? Yet you are there presiding over a process that, quote unquote, denied them resources. There are 10, 15 to 15 counties that are losing, so to say, for lack of a better way of putting it. If you're a presidential contender and you go to those counties and you are busy saying, let the money go where the population is, and those guys from that side have said, no, when you do that, we lose. How will you talk to those people? And you need 24 counties to support you, to give you at least a minimum of 25% of the votes cast in that. That is the main reason as to where you're finding this impasse continuing like it is doing. Number two, there is politics around it. There are people who are happy that there is this antagonism, because now you don't have to campaign. You just sit in your house, watch television, and politics will just play out. Yeah, you'll see politics, you'll take sides, people will castigate this other side, and then there will be two divides, as it were. And I think the moment we drop that aspect of politics from this, then we'll find ourselves, crystallizing around a solution. My honest opinion is that when we have a constitutional commission like the Commission on Revenue Allocation, much as the advisory by the Supreme Court said, whatever findings they have, whatever formula they come up with is not binding on the Senate, is not binding on the National Assembly. I think that right there lies a problem. Because being a constitutional commission, they have the facilities, they have the technical capacity, they have the ability to go out there, get public opinion.
Yes.
It's just coming with that formula and fixing it in the allocation of revenue bill so that it passes. I think we should have allowed that formula to run for now.
As it were?
As it were.
In the Senate?
Maybe the only amendment that should have been made is the one Kangata gave.
Okay.
In view of what happened with COVID and everything, remember the amount that was supposed to go to counties reduced by several billion shillings. So there is a possibility that whatever plans had been there, the budgets that had been done by counties, we should have set out to rely on other provisions of the Constitution, especially Article 202, that provides that counties can be given facilitation or facility by the national government, conditional or unconditional in grants, so that they can mitigate against the potential difference between what they have budgeted for and what they ultimately got.
All right.
That would have resolved that issue. But now going back to giving it to the Senate, and then politics takes center stage in the Senate, to the extent that you find a county that is benefiting, is getting more, like Kakamega. The senator of Kakamega, telling us, no, I will not accept what you're giving me. Yet, one of the functions of a member of parliament, National Assembly or Senate, is to represent the people. You represent the people by bringing resources to them. If you're given resources as a senator, the first thing that comes to your mind is not your neighbor. The first thing that comes to you, it doesn't matter how unless you're seeking a national position, a bigger position than that. It is not reasonable to tell me, and I think that's what the president was alluding to.
Yes.
When you're telling me you'll only accept this money when Isiolo gets more money, yet Nairobi has so many people, so many of them do not have basic services like what the president was alluding to. I think that's the key issue there. That tells you there's more to it than the aspect that we are being told that's love for the rest of the country, love for unity of this country. I think to me there's politics being played. There are people who are holding brief for presidential contenders, so that when it comes to 2022, those guys they're holding brief for will be out there saying, remember, we were the ones that were leading the team that ensured that your money was not lost 2 years ago.
All right.
These are simple.
Maybe this is a classic example of what you're talking about, holding brief, because this is Kipchumba Murkomen immediately after the president spoke. And I'm talking about consensus Kamau. Because Murkomen says in his tweet, heri wanaotafuta choo kwa maana wao wameshiba. Kuna wale wanakufa njaa hata haja ya choo hawana kwa maana hawajakula ama kunywa chochote. That was in response to the president.
Now, there has been a message that has coming on and off about a guy called Absalom. And Absalom had his
You want to
troop.
take us to the Bible again?
Exactly.
Okay.
Because now what this guy called Mulkomen is doing is like what Absalom used to do, sit on the gate and say, I'm the just one to give you justice. But that person who is there is a bad person. And that by these things we live.
Yes.
Like I said the other time, what was then is what is today. Why would Mulkomen, in his own judgment and having gone to a nursery school, take that, what the president was saying in his own humility, take that to talk about Cho? This guy, he just bought a Prado the other day.
Yes.
He doesn't know anything about even building wealth. Okay, like what Kagoni is saying about what are we producing. Mulkomen and the team, they are calling themselves a team Kenya. I told you the other day, and I know Wakil would support me. In 10 years, they will regret their
positions they have taken.
antagonistic way of governance, because him is a expert in governance. There are things that has to be followed to the letter. Kagoni pointed out about the cost of putting this pipe here and the other. Remember, when we got this constitution, they were given that money all along. And this is another formula that was being adopted. So if whatever money they were given then they didn't use to connect water, electricity, roads in whatever, it's like now saying the donkey ran and now the horse is here. Here, you have to give that donkey another mile so that the whatever can get to the horse can get with it. And I'll go with what my colleague is saying. Before you think about anyone else, you can see what Murkomen is saying. And it's an insult to the president. President was I would say he was with his parents, giving them title deeds. And he was talking to them to a language they would understand. Okay. And he's saying, as you look in this city, these people have lived here without title deeds. They've not had any point of production with the land they've had for many years, and they are old. Some of them, they don't even have toilet. Then this gentleman called Mulkomen, with his jaw coming down, says about toilet.
What problem do you
No, I'm looking at it because he's a young man, one. Number two, he could not be a senator if there was no Jubilee government, right? But now he's spitting on president's shoe. Okay. All right? Okay. So with humility, I would beg for those who think that president has not been seeing what was happening, and people don't need money. Them, they say they don't need money. They should understand that poverty is across board. Okay. Someone in Muranga, where I come from, is poor. So someone who is in Turkana is equally poor. If someone cannot provide for school fees for his children or something like that, or medical ability to his family, he's poor. So with that submission, I think we may move and go with the president.
All right. Jimmy Kagoni, the banter about toilets may look simplistic, but you would agree both of them are making very valid points. You have one point where you're talking about somebody who doesn't have amenities like toilets where they live, but you also have a person who perennially suffers from hunger. They wouldn't even think about toilets. It may look a simplistic argument, but that is laced with a lot of validity when it comes to this conversation about revenue.
It is unfortunate we are even discussing Murkomen here.
Yes.
It doesn't.
Yeah, and number two, he's not even sincere.
Okay.
He's not even sincere. Murkomen is suffering from what we call post-demotion depression. he has issues he has carried together with that. And it doesn't matter what the president says. Even if the president was to say that he's going to give him a ticket to heaven after this life, Murkomen will not take that. However, in his way of trying to respond to the president and what he was saying today, and I feel like he's now even doing a disservice to the function that he actually represents, because we are looking for a consensus, so to speak.
Yes.
We are looking for somebody who is going to argue some rationale of a kind and say, this is what I think, and maybe we should argue it in certain way. By the way, can I even say this? That even using counties as the boundaries of how to share revenue is wrong in itself, so to speak.
Yes.
Because, and I want just to quote the example of the president, the one that he used, because you have one side of Nairobi that is so well and so good, you know, think of Muthaiga, think of the places that he was actually mentioning. And when you use now those ones as the basis of Nairobi, so to speak, it's very possible to forget that there is Korogosho, there is Mukuru, Kwajenga, there is the other places, and those kind of things. However, but now you're dealing with Nairobi in that boundary. So therefore, if for instance you have a place where 80% of the area is quite okay, it's very possible to just assume the 20%. I feel like we should even look at that. Should the county boundaries be used as the basis even when we are talking about the revenue sharing, so to speak? Because think of a place like where? Like Kilifi itself. You know, Kilifi has very well up towns. Mtwapa, Malindi, and other places, they are well up, so to speak. However, the large area is quite rural. When you are even discussing about what should go to Kilifi, it's very possible to forget that there is a place called Malindi that is way better than Roiro. The kind of transactions, the business that goes on in Malindi, in Mtwapa, Roiro can't catch up with that. So maybe we also need to check that in future. The commission should maybe see, is there a way that you can even have what we call, and I think Munyi was actually talking about, even some conditional grants, so to speak. So that some of these things actually go directly to a certain area, to a specific area, specific service that they need to deal with, regardless whether there is a boundary, there is a county boundary there or not. But coming back to our friend Murkomen and what he said and what he's responding to. Maybe he has a point, but he should not even try to compare that with what the president was trying to say. Why I say so is because I mean, you can't really use those are two extreme examples that you are even trying to contrast.
But you would argue they're valid.
No, yes. When the person in Baringo is talking of hunger, that is the real challenge he knows.
Yes.
That is the real challenge he knows. Now, when that is a serious challenge, the person in Nyeri is arguing over a different thing. That doesn't mean that his challenge is not really valid because somebody else has another basic need. You know, you cannot even try to contrast those two. That's what I'm trying to say. I mean, a kid in West Pokot, the immediate need is where they can go to school. Those kids go under a tree. They school under a tree, so to speak. Their issue might not be maybe roads, their issue might not be water at that point. It could be something else. But that doesn't mean that a kid in Mandela who is talking of water doesn't have a valid point, so to speak. So when I see Murkomen trying to contrast those two, I mean, we need to agree and really appreciate that Kenya, we have myriad of challenges as a country.
All right.
They might not be similar. And therefore, it's not a matter of whether you are dressed or not dressed. It's a matter of, do you still have issues that this country need to address? Yes.
And maybe prioritizing would do a greater deal. But what is Why are the stakes so high? Monyui, in a conversation as important as this is, that even claims of bribery would rock such a conversation, that there are counties, among the counties that were losing money, some of them have already formed a chama kinda that is contributing money to give to this senator so that they can advance their arguments in the floor of the House.
Let me first touch on what Kagoni has said.
Yes.
If you are in a rural home, you might not need water to push sewer. You'll just do a pit latrine at the end of your compound somewhere, and you not need water.
Yes.
If you're in Nairobi, that will not work. So I think what the president was saying is that there are services that need to be there in Nairobi that might not necessarily be needed right now in other places. And that in no way does not mean there are no poor people in Isiolo. But the biggest number of poor people in terms of what they have every day per capita is in Nairobi. The poorest number of people are in Nairobi.
Yes.
So the question would beg, why would the senator of Nairobi not want to have more resources? Because one of the biggest benefits that will go his way is on the parameter poverty index. That is one of the reasons why, over and above population, the level of poverty in Nairobi will ensure Nairobi gets more resources. So when you don't support a formula that makes your county get that, so that you can mitigate against these issues that we are talking about, then that sends a lot of questions. Now, in terms of corruption, remember, counties have individuals that take all these contracts. So if you are less a billion, you'll have one less billionaire. Because there is someone who will take that contract to do that particular road, to do that water service, to do this or the other one. So there are individuals out there who do anything to ensure their respective counties get as much as they can be able to get, because they are beneficiaries, either as a community, because they are organized in such a way that they want their communities to do better than other communities, because they see themselves as their community. That's what tribalism is all about. But it becomes a problem when it becomes negative ethnicity.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with loving your tribe, or loving your community, loving your county. But there are people who will invest to ensure their respective counties draw as much as they can from the national coffers. And subsequently, that could end up in that will naturally end up in certain pockets. So don't be surprised. There are people who remember there are budgets that have been done, there are programs that have been drawn, and anything less being received means there are programs that might end up being dropped. I think that's a serious consideration. But having said that, to me, my concern is not even the counties that are getting quote unquote less. When we use the formula that has been proposed, especially by the committee, because that can only be the basis around which we have this conversation.
Yes.
My concern is counties that are getting more resources, but their respective senators. Like, what is baffling is the Kakamega governor, who would be more interested in more money or less money. He's saying this formula is good for this county. And he's the one who is in the executive. And the work of the executive is to implement those programs that are approved by the county assemblies.
Yes.
So if he's saying, give us this more money, why is the senator who is supposed to bring that money saying, no, Mr. Governor, relax, I want to give you less? Yet the governor who knows the needs of the people, and after interacting with them and realizing the programs that he has that will be affected by getting less than what has been proposed through this formula, he's saying, hey, I want this. This is what we want. And you, as a senator, cannot see it that way. So whose brief are you holding? That's why I'm saying, to me, it is more about 2022. It is about how will people be able to campaign in certain counties? How will you be able to do this or the other one? Of course, that might not be able to be seen in perspective by some people right now. But trust me, if we remove the element of that particular provision of 25% in 24 counties, we talk about a simple majority. You'll be surprised at the number of senators that were grandstanding, just saying, no. Forget about you guys. Me, I'm here sent by my the people who voted for me. I am going for this formula that is giving our people more money, because at the end of the day now it's about my people. So there are dynamics, there are a lot of interests at play here, and it is only reasonable. And this is my serious consideration. I think we need to go back to the CRA formula. Forget about everything else. Maybe the same amendment Kangata had introduced to the committee formula should be admitted even now, so that we have this kicking off in 2 years.
You stagger it.
You stagger it for 2 years, so that we use the formula that we have. And incidentally, I don't even know why CRA gives us a 3-year formula. The constitution is very clear that Senate every 5 years will be giving us this formula as a basis for sharing revenue, or rather allocating revenue. I don't know why they do 3-year formulas, to the extent that even this formula, if it's subjected to a court of law, there's a possibility it has not expired.
All right. I want us to dust off with this conversation about revenue before we get to the politics of the day. But very quickly, still, because Munyi has touched a little bit on it, and I want to give you your pet subject, the Deputy President and his stance on the revenue debate. His insistence on a win-win formula, because immediately after his boss spoke, he was also incurring today, and he appeared to respond to his boss as regards what he wants. And he says that it's possible senators should not be dictated upon, they should come up with a win-win formula. But there's to think the Deputy President is just playing politics and sitting on the fence with 2022 in sight.
Deputy President William Ruto, he has lost his glory. By that I mean, he has to follow. He has to know what the president said, what Munyu said, what Kagon said, so that he can respond. He has to read on the newspapers, what are they saying about me, what did they know about me that I had not said. All along since 1992, all his things are coming out. Having said that, is that what we are talking about here is politics. 316 billion is a small amount of money compared to the channels of development that the government gives to its people. A budget of how many trillions? Of Kenyan budget.
Now we are looking at 2.8.
Yeah, 2.8.
Yes.
And we are talking about 316 billion. I think what Kenyans and leaders should be looking at is the remaining amount. What channel are they going to use to have school, hospitals and stuff, or whatever it's required in their area, vis-a-vis this one of 316, because this is where the politics they are playing in. And like I said last time, can we just get these people out of camera? They go there, agree. If they don't agree, the government will find a way of giving her citizens what they need and forget about it. Because Deputy President...
But saying that, you're saying we do away with the devolution or what?
If it doesn't work, and we can do away with it, because we make the constitution is for Kenyans, okay? And if the people mandated to give money to the counties cannot agree on a simple formula, that means Kenya was not blessed with the devolution. Again, this Deputy President guy wants to seem like he's winning every other county. Yeah, like he say win-win. But so he doesn't want
you
to
can address
offend
him honorably without calling him this Deputy President guy.
Okay, Deputy President William Ruto.
Yes.
Is the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya.
Yes.
He should stop saying win-win. And he should work with what was agreed here and what was agreed here, and we are having a formula that can win.
Okay.
Is that enough for him?
Okay.
Okay.
Fantastic. Let me give you Raila Odinga. Jimmy Kangweni. Raila Odinga appears to tell us we can rely on the CRA formula, the initial CRA formula. And then at some point during an interview with one station in the country, he says he would also want a win-win situation. It doesn't have to get acrimonious as it is right now. I don't know whether you can quote him as a friend when it comes to the advancements that the president is making, or is he saying this during the day and then contradicting himself during the night?
Let me tell you, JJ, and I've even said, I think on this show before.
Yes.
You got to love people like Mother Karua and Uhuru Kenyatta.
Okay.
Who sometimes they'll have to declare their stand, whether you like it or you don't like it. Meet this thing of Deputy President and Raila Odinga, of the win-win. You know, generalizing everything just because you want to look like the good guy. Me doesn't work for me. You are either here or here. What are you even calling a win-win here?
Okay.
But even before I get there, you know what the Senate has not really realized? Is the game they are in, and actually the game they have been set into by the executive themselves. I don't know whether you heard of the story of the kids who are sharing fruits, and three of them were actually yellow, and then there were others that were just one was green.
Those must be apples.
Possibly, possibly. I didn't want to mention the other things for watermelons.
Move on.
But I've also realized you are fond of them. What happened is that, so the kid who was smarter requested the others, would you love yellow or green? And because he knew the green, these kids will actually go for the green, which was only the single one, He said green. He said, okay, I'm going for yellow. So now we will check the fruits. If we find they are yellow, then I take the yellow ones, you take the green ones. So the many of them had already declared their stand, they wanted the green one. So he was left with 3 fruits, which were yellow, and the rest of the kids were left shared the green one.
Okay.
Now, he was just a spectator, seeing how they are trying to scrub on how they are going to deal with one green, and nobody is raising the issue. Are we talking about oranges here or their colors?
Maybe he had prior knowledge of the colors.
The point,
fruits in the basket.
The point of, yeah, he had, of course. The point I'm trying to make here is this. Petronila Were
Yes.
brought a proposal, actually even to increase the amount. And he said, can we even work with 348? Well, there are issues that we have already approved the budget. We can go back. We can only deal with what we have now here and stuff and all that. You see, a budget is a process. The Senate needs to realize that it needs to participate even when the National Assembly is actually undertaking the budget process. So that you negotiate right there the amount that is sufficient for the people you represent. Not to wait until now you get the green fruit only. And then the National Assembly, they are spectators, and the national government, the executive, they're just spectators as they watch you scramble just from nothing. You know, and we said here last week, I think, or something like that. Out of the 2.7 trillion that Kamau is actually mentioning, out of that 2.7 billion, we are talking of only, it's even less than 15% of that amount. Of that amount that is actually going to the counties. And by the way, look at the Ministry of Health alone, the one we were discussing last week. With the 98 billion and what they are doing with that, with also the money that has come with the COVID and what they are actually doing with that. I mean, look at just one single, do you know how much money actually goes to the Devolution Ministry? Have you ever even asked yourself, what is the role of Devolution Ministry in this country? And here we are scrambling 316 billion among the counties and all that. And by the way, even the fraction that is in dispute is even less than 10 billion. The fraction that is actually in dispute is actually less than the one that we are saying doesn't go there. It's actually even less than 10 billion. So what I'm trying to say is this. I'm uncomfortable when people like Raila don't really want to take a stand. I'm glad that the president today took a stand. Whether you like it or you don't like it, at least the score is he has already declared a stand. And we want leaders in this country who are confident enough to say, this is what I believe in. You might not agree with me, but this is actually my stand. This popularity kind of mentality and politics that we have in this country, to be very honest, is what has made Kenya to be what it is today. I would want the deputy president to be very firm and say, no win-win. It's either you are saying that we consider the counties of Mandela and the others that are said to be quote-unquote they are losing, or you are on this other side. It's either this win, what is win-win? You know, they're always hiding with the win-win and all that. But just to say something that the deputy president also, or something that came out when the deputy president was actually talking about the issue. For the first time, somebody like the deputy president has the audacity to say that the Senate need to be independent. For the first time. That shocked me. Where did he even get the courage, knowing how they have been using parliament this far? Dictating and saying this is, and for the first time he's saying that it needs to be left to be independent.
Maybe I lead us to escalate this conversation further and get into the politics of it. Charles Munyui, yesterday the Standard called the deputy president a spectator in his own government. Let's get there. Is the deputy president a spectator in a government he formed?
Let me start by maybe touching on devolution, because I support devolution.
You're a pro-devolution.
I believe in devolution.
Yes.
And what you're talking about, 316 billion. Remember, when we devolved, we said money follows functions. So that money is quote unquote sufficient to take care of the functions that are devolved. And that's why when Governor Sonko, His Excellency Sonko, gives some functions back, to the national government, the first thing that he does, much as he does not have sufficient resources,
Yes.
is to take the resources that he has and give it back to the National Assembly to top up what the national, the national government.
The national government, yes.
So what we are trying to say is health is devolved. National referral hospitals and policy is a function of the national government. But everything else, all the level, whatever you want to call them, level 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, are functions of the county government. So the resources they are getting are for those functions. So it's not little money. And you can tell, especially where governors have been serious about what they do. 8 years later, you can see a serious difference between that and what we used to have in the past, where we were the mercy of the head of state, where we would decide development, this will go to this particular region, will go to the other particular region. So I think, to me, what we must do is really appreciate that in the event the Senate is unable to come up within a law, the Constitution is very clear on what is supposed to happen. One can just petition the Chief Justice to advise the President to take that Senate or the National Assembly home. It is easier than doing away with devolution, because the Constitution and the laws are very clear on who is supposed to come up with what law, when.
It's easier to do away with the Senate than do away with the concept of devolution.
Exactly, because we cannot do away with devolution. Devolution is here to stay. Devolution is doing very well.
Come on,
and what we are
saying we could do
and that is why even BBI recommends we amend the Constitution. Instead of the 15% that we say must go to counties, or 16% or whatever, we say a minimum of 35% now should be going to counties. The formula that you use to take that money to the counties, that is subject to discussion like we are having. And that discussion, I think for the first time in the history of this country, Kenyans now are alive to what sharing of revenue, allocation of revenue is all about.
Okay.
I want to touch on something called holding harmless, a principle called holding harmless, that people have been relying on to say some counties have lost. When we came up with devolution, Nyeri lost 3 billion shillings. Pre-devolution, if we were pre-devolution, then Nyeri will be getting an extra 3 billion shillings. Kiambu, I think, will be getting 2. Nakuru will be getting, Kakamega will be getting slightly more than they are getting. So the aspect of losing started after devolution to some of these counties. And there was a recommendation that around 20 billion should have been used to mitigate against this loss that has come, because devolution should not have resulted in some counties losing, as it were. But they lost, and they were comfortable with it. What we are saying now is, this phase 2 of the losses that are being appreciated by some people. Remember, the first formula, the very first one, was premised on the wrong population figures, because the 2009 figures were really played with. Yeah, and even the minister, no less a person than the minister for planning himself, Oparanya, went to court to say some of these figures are not okay. Yeah, I do not want to talk about who the judge who actually ultimately determined that the status should be maintained, and that was overturned later by the same courts of law. So what we are saying is, there are people who have been playing with population figures, because they know, as long as the populations are reading this way, and then we subject the formulas to that particular population, our regions benefit. And I think that's where we lost it. Second formula followed almost the same steps as the first one. For the first time in the history of this country, we are looking at now making sure that things work out okay. Unfortunately, again, when we came up with 47 counties, there was a lot of gerrymandering, just like we did when we came up with the 290 constituencies. There are counties that are there purely to be sustained, and that is rather unfortunate, by the way. Let us put it in perspective.
They cannot sustain themselves.
They cannot sustain themselves, which we don't mind. What the Senate should be doing is giving us solutions. They know Article 204 on equalization fund. Why don't they tell us that from now on, equalization fund is not going to be 0.5%, it's going to be 2%, so that it can mitigate against those counties that do not have infrastructure, support infrastructure, and that kind of things, instead of eating into the counties that already have the need, as it were. And I'll give you an example of health. The 17% recommended by the Commission on Revenue Allocation percentage on health. The parameters are very simple. Looking at how many people have visited the hospitals in Kiambu for admission, for just walking in and walking out, and how many are insured. If compare that with what is happening in Isiolo, which county is likely to get more people visiting their hospitals and getting treated this way or the other way? So, and we give that based on that particular percentage. What exactly is wrong with that? You'll find in Nairobi, when it comes to agriculture, 10%, you'll find Nairobi getting way less than maybe Elgeyo Marakwet, because Elgeyo Marakwet is more agricultural in nature. So what is wrong again with that? poverty index, Nairobi getting more than other counties at least, even Nyandarua, that is agriculture to the extent that many more people have basic things. So I think, to me, like I said, again, is politics. Now, in terms of His Excellency William Samoei Ruto being an observer, he's the one who is turning himself into an observer.
He is.
When you talk about deep state, you shock us because we thought you were deep state. You and the president should be deep state. In as far as I'm concerned, I thought that was deep state right there. And maybe a few
another definition of deep state.
a few CSs and a few PSs. I thought that would be what I would call deep state, and it would scare me to be told that deep state is looking for you. So when the deputy president extricates himself from that deep state situation, then he's telling us he's outside looking in. When he talks about a win-win formula, the same language that is being used by individuals that are trying to tell us, forget about population, forget about all these things. In fact, don't even agree. Because when you tell us we are postponing our discussions today so that we can have this team that will discuss and then come up with a formula, and then you don't even have the first meeting because people don't turn up. Instead, they go call pressers and declare that we've already gotten a solution to this issue. And then the following day you are saying win-win. It cannot be win-win. It can only be about being fair.
Okay.
Because at some point, there are counties that will receive slightly less. It does not matter what formula you use. There will be counties that will receive slightly less. What the deputy president should be talking about is a situation whereby the national government, he can say, we are going to sit down with the president so that we can see how we'll help the counties that ultimately will get less than they had planned for. And number two, we are advising Senate to increase the amount of money that will go to the county to equalization fund. That helps. But when you act as if you're not part of this, when it's convenient, then you are telling us that you're not part of what is happening. And I think
you're simply saying then the spectator tag is because it's self-inflicted, like the deputy president has brought it upon himself.
I will tell you for free,
yes.
If there were no issues, if everything was fine, everyone was happy, the deputy president would not act like he's an outsider.
Okay.
But as long as things are not looking good, as long as there's an issue with KEMSA, as long as there is an expose, there is this and the other one, I am not, that is you guys. This is not me. It's got nothing to do with me. And I think the most reasonable thing is for Kenyans to see these things in perspective.
Okay.
Because you have a choice. If you're not comfortable, you have a choice. You know what you can be able to do.
All right.
And it's provided for in the Constitution.
We will get to that.
So
but
I'm not advising anybody on what to do, but I'm just saying, if you're in government, you're in government. It's that simple. You cannot be in government and out of government. Those two are mutually exclusive.
All right.
Yes.
I know Kamau is aching to actually come into and dive right in. And the question is, has the deputy president been alienated, or is he alienating himself from government?
JJ, I know you want me to just start poking holes on this spectator thing, but today I want to be very fair to Deputy President.
Oh, you want to?
I really want to be fair to him, and
Pigs
those
will
people
fly
who think
tonight.
that I don't like Deputy President.
Yes.
I can give him all the credit of what he is today, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, where he came from and what he has been doing and the benefit he has shown to this country. To that I give him all the credit. And on noting that, I always want to ask myself, how did he get here? Okay? Deputy President, after selling chickens and all these stories we hear, I really want to know who was his father, his uncle, his friends he went to school with, his associate in business, and all these man of things that has shaped him to be who he is. Because to the ground, and those are the things we don't like asking ourselves, because we like him so much and we want him to live.
You're telling us you don't know his history.
That I'm trying to understand, because I've not been following him on how he has. I've seen him being taken photos doing chicken somewhere when there's a chicken, whatever, people selling chickens and goats in Kajiado and Narok.
Yes.
But I really asked myself, who was his primary school teacher? Who was his primary school friend? High school?
This
college?
guy called Clement.
Now you're telling me.
Yes, I'm telling you.
Then when he started business, who were his associates and where did they go to? Okay. When he joined the government, because he has been the government for close to 30 years.
Yes.
who has he been working with or doing things together that I don't see him? Like today or yesterday, I've seen him with a very, very, very young man, which is okay for me. But I really ask myself, who is his real good friend? Maybe, in African way, like where I come from, the guy we did class 8 with, and we actually, so to say, we were initiated together, that him where he is, to kunywe chai. You know what I'm saying? So I want to
You're
understand.
vying in Kangema, we don't know your classmates.
If you want me to call him now, I can call him. He'll pick and tell you what we did.
And you're telling us the deputy president doesn't have something
This
he can
thing,
call
he
and
doesn't
call a
talk
classmate?
about himself. These things we don't ask ourselves about, how he came, who has been his friend. And when you go to his region, Rift Valley, where he has been
Aren't you
a
advancing
leader.
a very simplistic argument about
Which is
leadership?
okay. It is very basic for me.
Okay.
Because what I say is, one day, before you call these people you're calling new friends that you've known for 10 years, can you just line up your friends that you've been with for 30 years so that we understand you're coming from here? Now, after the president told him, now you'll be working from there and I'll be working from here. Now he's talking like he doesn't know what has been happening. All the government he has served for 30 years. And joining into what my colleague has said, he has been in the government. He's a system. Okay? He's a deep state. So these people he has made his friends. Why is he not talking to them behind the curtain to tell him not to seem like a spectator? Because that's why sometimes you're told to follow. If he has followed President Uhuru Kenyatta behind here, we could not be knowing that now. Imagine we are talking about a weakness of a deputy president of Republic of Kenya, and you're asking us, is he a spectator? Is he a leader? Or he just have money from nowhere?
So according to you, he's the one who is alienating himself from government?
Not that, don't put it according to me. He actually, we are seeing him through. I saw a photo the other day, like a photo that if you look at me, I've got some meat here. You cannot see through me. But I saw a photo of him, and it shows that you can see through him. Again, I want to remind you.
What point are you making exactly?
Let me take you back, because I want to be fair to him.
Yes.
There was a day in Rift Valley, and there was a burial of a guy called Makto. May he rest in peace.
Yes.
And all those guys who sat there were friends, and they knew each other from the family setup, the business, and all manner of things. And a guy called former minister Nicholas Biwott.
Yes.
He had seen it all, and he was in the last day. That I think that was his last function. He took the podium and he said, "Deputy President, nyinyi muko na the president. You're with the president here. You're here. You have your bishop who is praying for you. Wachana na hawa, wajumbe, wachana na governor, all manner of things." What was Nicholas Biwott saying? You guy, leave these small things that you're working with. Leave these people that you want to be with.
Was he asking the deputy president to stop small fights down there?
Then when
or to drop his
in
friends?
fact, that burial was Gideon Moy's family friend. Because Makto is the one who stepped down for President Uhuru Kenyatta to get into. So when you're invited into a table like you've invited me here, I have to follow your lead. If I don't do that, I'm going to spoil your table. What am I saying? Can we just ask ourselves, our dear Deputy President, please tell us who you are so that we can get to understand, so that we don't call you a spectator tomorrow.
Or dear Kamau of Kangema, kindly tell us what you don't know about the Deputy President so that he can explain it to you. But Kagoni, it's so much for fairness, thinking about it. All the part of Kamau, self-inflicted or being alienated. We know there are National Security Council meetings that have been happening. He's actually a member of that council, but has not been attending. And most of the time when you ask him, he's appearing to run away from the fact that he's not invited into those meetings.
You know, this country has a history of isolating people.
Okay.
And some of them have been isolated to a point of assassination. Think of people like Tom Mboya, they were in government, how they ended. Think of people like J.M. Karaoke. But
Pintos.
Yes, but I want to give you a very specific example of somebody called Charles Jonjo, who at one point was actually a very powerful attorney general of this country. And what happened until now, the system was against him and he could not even be able to do anything, access anything. He was just powerless as an attorney general until now he had even to quit. Eventually, he had to go and look for a seat where Munyi comes from. Now, what am I trying to say?
What are you trying to say?
That nothing much has changed, so to speak. It is possible to be isolated up there, and there are a few reasons why you can be isolated when you're up there. You can be isolated when you misbehave, and you can be isolated when you are ambitious. Now, I think the two has happened for the deputy president.
He has misbehaved and
He
he's
has
been ambitious.
misbehaved and he has also been ambitious.
Okay.
Maybe he needed to check on that too. Because when you look at the first term, I think everything was quite cohesive by then. There was a lot of harmony and all that. However, he was the man who was calling shots then. He was the
During
man who
President
was,
Kenyatta's first term?
yeah.
How?
He was the man who was actually calling shots then. I'm not sure whether by then he would have actually spoken about the deep state and the system and what have you. The last time I checked during that term, I saw him actually receiving instruments of power from President Kenyatta for a period to show that he can be able, he is the man in charge. Well, I can't really remember when he actually returned the instrument of power, but what I know is that either in one way or the other he returned the instrument, but he remained with the power.
Can it go on record that you're saying the first term of President Uhuru Kenyatta, he was lame duck and it was the deputy president who was running things?
Well, you say so, but the point is that the deputy president of this country was quite powerful then. And maybe he needs to reflect and ask himself, what really changed?
So he's not powerful now.
What really
Is he powerful?
What really changed? I am glad that
Kagoli appears to say there's no power.
I am glad that he actually admitted it himself yesterday and said, yeah, I'm an isolated man. I'm an isolated man. The good thing is that he said, I'm not isolated because of COVID, but he is isolated from power. Simply because he is also quite ambitious. It's also good to be a bit fair to him. Part of why the deputy president is isolated is because of his ambitions. And I don't think there is anything wrong for him to be ambitious, so to speak. I mean, at one point, even the president himself had promised him that I'm actually going to support you. In fact, the president is on record by
He actually has not said he's not going to support him.
Yeah, so to speak. And part of the why...
Clearly today you're being very fair.
And I don't know why. Right now that so many people have a problem with him, because they knew very well that as he was coming in, he had also other ambitions that are going to follow thereafter. And he is actually just trying to pursue on those ambitions. The much he has done is to try and to leverage on his position currently to see how that can actually help him to pursue the ambitions that he has had.
However, let me cut you short.
Yes.
I want us to take a break because when we come back, I'll still bring it back to you because you talked about ambitions and misbehavior or misdemeanor. At least the ambition part, you've convinced us enough about ambition, which he has always had since he joined President Uhuru Kenyatta. We want to hear the part about misbehavior. But then again, when we come back, there's a bigger question. Did the president hand the deputy president that very ticket of him dissociating himself from the ills of a Jubilee administration, if there are any? Because the deputy president is now appearing to say, you know what, I was not there. Let's take a break. When you come back, we pick it up from there. Don't go too far.
without knowing.
Okay.
That's basically what happened to the deputy president. I wish he was a bit moderate with his ambitions, so to speak, because he would have actually known how to draw the line. But, you know, because to be very fair to the deputy president, and I like him as a person, I mean, how do you get out during this COVID season to give out food stuff in Kikuyu when actually people in Baringo are dying of floods? Mm-hmm. How passionate can you be to such a region when actually your own background, your own backyard, people are actually dying out of floods, and we haven't even seen you go to that direction, so to speak, you know? And he actually needs to...
You thought that was deliberately trying to undermine the president?
This is basically what I'm talking about, being misbehaving. This is totally what I'm talking about. And he needs actually to moderate his ambition, so to speak. Okay. I mean, he is popular, everything is working for him and all that. What I'm even fearing now, and I don't know who else has noted this, is that since yesterday, his responses are becoming more and more blunt.
He's bolder by the days.
He's very emboldened now, even the way he speaks and all that. Because I didn't even expect him that he's actually going to respond to the headline that was there yesterday, the spectator tag. When I saw what he said today after the president has spoken, I mean, to me, he appears like now he's ready for a bare knuckle kind of confrontation with the president. I can only tell him one thing. Deputy President, you have something to lose. The president has nothing to lose. Okay. Please be a bit moderate in your fight. People like you, people are following you, you have the numbers, it is possible for you to become and all that. This is actually going to deny you what you have always gained, which is actually the sympathy votes.
All right, you're popular, you have the numbers, cool it down. But there's a statement made here by Kagoni. I would want to hear your view, Charles, that the deputy president was running things in the first term of President Uhuru Kenyatta. I don't know how possible that is.
I think that's just a narrative. Come on, you know. Then how do you pick him again for a second term? If he was insubordinative, he was doing all those things that you did not want done. So why do you pick him as a deputy president, as a running mate, when you had a choice? When you're going for the second time, you could have picked anybody else to work with you. I think that's just a narrative. Okay. And it works best depending on where you sit. If you want to see this man as a solution to a panacea, as it were, to your problems, then you see him as a solution. That everyone else is asleep, it's only him who works. And that's just something you give your mind to console yourself, or to make you have that energy to continue supporting that person. Okay. And if anything, the constitution is very clear on who is the president and who the deputy president is, and when one acts president, and the extent to which you act president. And I think
Kagoni is referring to the 2 days he acted as president.
It's not only 2 days. By the way, for the record, every time the president is not there, he acts. Yeah, by default.
By default,
because the constitution is very clear on some of these things. And I think the moment we take that conversation in that direction, that someone was president, because someone else was not able to run government, I think that is quite erroneous. If you ask
me. Let me ask you. Yes. Let me ask you a direct question, because I said that is where we would pick it up from. Yesterday, that spectator tag that Kagoni is talking about, the deputy president responds with emojis, the laughter emojis. At least for once, it wouldn't be possible to be blamed for what someone said. Started in Wuhan as a virus, landed in Italy as a pandemic, and now in Kenya as a multi-billion shilling corruption enterprise. Wacha niendelee kuwa spectator is all right.
What happens is that, let me put it this way. Yes. In last elections, I tried to be the MP for Kiamba, and I flopped miserably. I did not just lose, I flopped bad time. Okay. And every time I laugh at that. I feel good. Nobody can laugh at me. No, you laugh with me, you cannot laugh.
You licked your wounds and
remember the deputy president has been associated with all manner of corrupt issues. Yes. Whether true, that's a different story. Okay. But that is a tag that had been placed on him, and he's been working with it, and his associates have been. So when he tweets like that, it becomes exciting, because now the shoe, I guess is saying, is on the other foot.
It's on the other foot, yes.
Because on this one, you cannot put it on him, because he was quote unquote not in the middle of the system, as it were. I think that's a brilliant tweet, if you ask me, coming from him, and it should be appreciated that he also has sense of humor. But of course, But of course, we know corruption is a serious issue.
Yes.
And we have seen institutions like the DCI fighting corruption seriously. And do you know what corrupt individuals do?
Yes.
They go out there and tell us, remind us, the EACC has the mandate of dealing with matters corruption, and they quote all manner of provisions in the Constitution and the law. And we tell the DCI to relax. I think I've seen today that the president instructing the DCI and the EACC to work on the KEMSA issue, because there are people who were so scared of Kinoti that they would not want Kinoti to fight corruption. And when Kinoti sits back a little bit, I think the guys who are corrupt become emboldened. And that's why you're seeing sort of like impunity coming back. Having said that, and I'm looking at the person of the deputy president and reminding myself that even the promise we premise everything on, that the president said kumi yangu and kumi ya Ruto, is the president's kumi over. If the president said 8 years ago that it's going to be my 8 years, when did the deputy president start campaigning? So if you're the one breaking the promise that you need to give me 10 years because I need to cultivate a legacy also, as it were, and you are part of this legacy because it is that legacy that you will build on. And we promise people will fight corruption. We promise people that we're going to embolden to make sure devolution works. We promise people a lot of things, including institutional capacity and all those other things. Support, let's work together so that we deliver that. When you start having that conversation that I'm the one who is running government, when you start having that conversation around you and your proxies, that if it were not me, I'm good, he is not okay. And you still want to ride on the 10 years of his,
the promise that
he gave. You want him to keep his promise, yet his 10 years are not over. 1 year into the second term, we've already started campaigning big time, putting a team together, So I think to me...
But one would ask, what was so different that he's done during this second term that he was not doing in the first term?
The deputy president?
Yes.
And that's what we are talking about. The second time he came out, with all of them blaring. He was going for the seat. He was campaigning. He was moving from this place to the other one. He was tangaing, as it were. If you
Same
remember.
things he was doing in the first term.
No. This was different. This was different because now this is for him. This is not for the president. This is the second time is for him. He's not doing it for the president. He's actually crediting himself with most of these things.
Okay.
And it's all there. It's already there in the public domain. And by the way, personally, I don't criminalize ambition. The deputy president has every right to be ambitious. He has every right to go for this seat. He has every right to use whatever it is, tricks in the books and out of the book that he uses. What I have a problem with is him expecting that his colleague in leadership in the presidency will support the direction he takes on these issues. So if he finds himself getting antagonized along the way, he should not blame the other side, because even the other side has a responsibility and a right to also look at you and see you as part of the problem in terms of the legacy that the president wants to leave. So I think we also need to be fair to each other. Appreciate that the deputy president even will have more other friends. He will build other friends.
Kamau doesn't appear to agree that
and
the deputy president
I'll tell you
has
for
friends.
free. I'll tell you for free. He will build on other teams.
But
He'll build on other.
you also need to build a good will that can be understood by every
He'll
other
build
person.
on other relationships.
Okay.
And,
What about the relationship you started with?
I'm just saying, in politics, people move on.
No,
Are you
in
forgetting?
real
life.
life.
Hold on a minute, come on.
Let's give it a minute. Every season, election cycle comes with a reason, and especially when you're talking about a transition. Kibaki beat Moi because Kenyans were tired of the Moi type of leadership.
Yes.
And everyone came to Kibaki, crystallized around him, including Raila Odinga, and they said this has to end. Uhuru won because him and the deputy president came together, and the country felt like it was under attack by the rest of the world through the matters that were before the ICC. That was the ground. That was the reason. That was what happened around that time. Now, what you are seeing today, and you watch this space. This issue of revenue is going to be used to build on a different kind of a story.
And it has already started.
And you'll find people building on this, and that's why this whole problem is not ending.
Okay.
I will tell you, if you look at all these formulas and you look at what is being proposed, there is no fundamental, very huge difference between that cannot be worked on and agreed on. But people are looking for what will now ensure this person or person B has an upper hand when it comes to elections 2022. And this is something that is gaining traction as one of the things that can be able to be used or utilized, depending on where you're looking at it from, to be able to propel you to that other level.
All right.
So I think the person, the deputy president, like you said, totally ambitious, strategizes, and has narratives that are pushed very fast and very easily. And you'll find, I'll give you an example.
Very quickly.
Very quickly. Mount Kenya region stands to gain from a formula. But you'll find Mount Kenya region people saying, Apana, we are supporting what Ruto is saying. Let the whole country be okay. And then you'll find that person queuing in Kiambu hospital to be treated and there is no medicine. And he does not associate that with the fact that the formula that is there is not supporting that particular hospital. That. And the same thing will go on in Kakamega. Someone in Kakamega will say, no, we want a united country where everyone is getting equal share of this revenue. By the way, there's nothing like equal. It's equitable. So, and then that person will not get the service that they need in that particular place in Kakamega, and they will not associate it with the fact that someone is not supporting a formula that would ensure that service is given in that particular place. And that is why the DP is emboldened to the extent that he will put the votes in Kiambu in abeyance as he seeks votes in Northeastern, he seeks votes in Coast, and he's happy that for the first time he's able to work in Coast and will have something to say.
Okay.
Yes.
Fair enough. Kamau. Every government has its own misdeeds. What I saw the deputy president trying to do yesterday is actually dissociate himself from any ills that may have rocked the Jubilee administration. But then you would say, this is the president's doing. He's allowing his deputy to actually say, you know what? I'm not part of this administration anymore. Will the deputy president be able, or the deputy president in the contest in 2022, he has a direct ticket of saying, I've not been part of this government?
I had promised to be very fair to Deputy President William Ruto.
And now you don't think you can continue with that
And
line?
I'm struggling to be. Because from what my colleague Charles is saying, we are not telling each other the truth.
Okay.
Because William Ruto, as much as you would want to say this term, I'll come to your point.
Okay.
As much you will want to say, at this time you'll work with these people, the other time you'll drop them, then we are not building a society. Politics that we are looking for, and I would want my son, probably who is watching me, to know about his father, is that I can be your friend, I can be your friend today, and I can try so much to be your friend in 10 years to come. That's what I see from my father. And because I'm feeling my nerve just rising up, there's a proverb in Kikuyu that says, Wari kadofirikaga. Because when you're in the same age group, there are things, that's what I'm trying to explain. When you're in the same group, there are things you will do and do it wrong because you don't know anything. And I would say, with all fairness, Deputy President William Ruto, the things you're doing is, if we can only be true to ourselves, you're not doing it right. Because there have been men in the time when they could not read and write, and they've managed this world, forget about Kenya, to where we are today. These new things you're trying to introduce of picking up friends and dropping them, that no one can account the friend you had 10 years because of politics, then what are we doing? Then what we need to do, and that's what I say the other time, this system you're trying to create and talking about, picking these men who are coming around you, Akina Murkomen. Actually, Murkomen is the one who's making me struggle to want to be fair to Deputy President. Okay. He's a good guy. People say he's smart, he dresses well, and stuff like that. But when Murkomen stands to even discredit my president, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, then even if I wanted to be fair, and Sudi, it's Oscar Sudi. When Oscar Sudi stands and drops his jaw and want to say one or two things, that now I'll defend my president, Uhuru Kenyatta. Now,
answer my question.
On his issue on whether he's a spectator or something.
Not about spectator. I'm telling you, this is a president that handed the deputy president a direct ticket to say, I am not part of the misrules and the misdeeds of
exactly. That's where we are coming at. Now, if he is not part of this government, then why, if we are true Kenyans and who want to be accountable and talking about corruption and all this manner of thing, why do we allow him to be paid by Kenyans? Because he's paid by taxpayer monies, but he does not to get accountable to anyone in any wrong that goes in the government. And he says, no, you guys are doing that, me, I'm not part of that. Why is he even staying in government's house? Why is he even driving, paying even a simple airtime of 10 bob paid by the government? He doesn't want to even say, please Kenyans, this happened, can we just work together and find solution over this matter? And that's what I'm saying. Those people who are advising Deputy President are just putting him in that hole that he will not come out by 2022. Why do I say so? Do you see
very quickly, because I'm running out of time.
Okay. Do you see Murkomen, Sakaja, and others, Akina Sudi, taking positions in government administration? Where will they lead us? If you're truly honest to yourself about Deputy President, what can I say? Go back to Rift Valley. Those elders that were with your father and your uncles and your friends who you knew then, go sit down with them. I'll be fair enough if whatever they're going to tell you and tell me, I'm going to support you.
Okay. At least you've not told us what happened in Kangema. When you admit in
okay.
in Kiamba, he
Can
flopped.
I say?
Did you flop?
In Kangema, I worked with people who I thought they knew, and actually this
He's saying he lost.
I actually did not do the right thing.
Okay. Wow, that's a good ambition. Very quickly, Jimmy Kakeni, as we wind up, the person of Raila Odinga and the association with government. We're talking about the Deputy President saying, the way things are going, I'm not part of this administration anymore. And he can actually hold that card as a trump card in 2022. Will Raila Odinga be able to dissociate himself now from the ills of this administration, if they were to be counted when we talk about the year 2022?
If you don't mind, I would also want to rate Ruto on that.
Okay.
Because I have a problem with a wife who is comfortable with me when I have money, and she doesn't want to be associated with me when I'm in deep shit. I have a serious problem with
language.
That. Because let me tell you, JJ, I've seen the Deputy President before saying ile kazi tunafanya ya kuzalisha stima, ya kufanya nini na kila kitu. But then when all of a sudden the government is not doing well, saying you can see them, we have been isolated here, we have been out. I have a problem with that kind of a character, to be very honest. But coming to Raila.
Yes.
I think Raila is swinging very well in government, so to speak. I mean, he doesn't critique the government. He doesn't say anything wrong is happening.
Except for the day of the arrest of senators, he has released a statement.
Which was very deliberate for him, because that is actually one of his dear senators, and he wants to show him like I stood with you. And if anything, by the way, the majority were really siding with the story. I think the Raila is really very happy on the table, very comfortable in everything that happens and all that. Whatever was black all of a sudden is white. I mean, whatever was to Raila, everything is quite okay. I mean,
he appears to enjoy the comfort.
He appears to enjoy the comfort so far. Everything is just working the way he would want it to be, and his eyes are very clear. I think to 2022, he doesn't. I mean, to him, he doesn't care exactly what happens in between.
He's a good follower.
He hasn't even said about anything to do with the COVID billionaires and all that. That is not his. Just the other day, I think I saw him saying something very interesting, and he said, "We are both a government party, and we are both
an opposition."
And an opposition.
Yes.
And I like the way he framed it. You know, we are partly in opposition, and partly in government. And I like that kind of honesty, because what he is saying is that we are also eating with them a little bit.
We are eating not too much.
Yeah. So we can't really exonerate ourselves from here. And by the way, when we are shouting, we need to be a bit moderate, because these are our brothers.
I think.
However,
I'll give you a responsibility.
However, on the other side, you say, but you also need to realize that we are also strangers. It's only that our invitation has been extended to this far. To me, Raila is active. I mean, he's very honest with that.
So will he be able to dissociate himself from the ills of an incumbent or a government that has existed the last 5 years?
Yes. Let me tell you.
Kagoni need to say that the plan has been drawn.
Yeah, let me tell you.
And Ruto has isolated himself, and Raila is a guy.
Okay.
Let me tell you.
Yes.
Raila will actually be able to say, we just gave them time. We didn't want to be very harsh on people who say they wanted time to work. They didn't work even when we created the environment for them. Okay. It would be so easy for him to exonerate from himself, from this government, and say that I was never part of this, so to speak.
All right, before I wind up, because I saw you wanting to respond to that thing about we are eating a little bit, but for the time being.
I think Raila committed himself to the 9 shared objectives at our BBI.
Okay.
You remember some of those issues are about fighting corruption, unity of the country, and it does not go over very well when you're busy shouting out there in public to look like you're the ones who is leading the fight against corruption, when you're committed yourself to a process that is still, in the making on how you sort out these issues that have affected us for a very long time. I think he's trying as much as he can to stop being populist in regard to the specific issues that are there until we find ground around some of these things through the process that is already ongoing. I think to me that's why you find he might not be able to say a lot, because by so doing he'll be preempting the findings and the ultimate reports and the bills that will end up before Parliament for purposes of sorting out some of these things that we are talking about. So on a day-to-day issues of corruption, I think the government is there. I think the government has a responsibility to fight corruption. By the way, you don't it's only that people are not being reasonable and fair. As we speak, the board has, told the CEO and the heads of to go home. I have seen directives on to EACC and the DCI on matters investigation,
which we see.
But Kenyans would like you to be shot on sight. Yes. And that is not the way it works. And you've seen the old DPP complaining that you bring matters here that are rushed purely because you want to have people arrested and then taken to court, and then before you know it, they're out there, and then there are technicalities that we end up with these guys not being without these guys not being jailed. So what we're trying to say is there's a lot that needs to happen, but Raila is that kind of a person. He commits, and I think that's why he's even allowing Uhuru the latitude to be able to perform on some of these things.
All right, make your last comment that we wind up.
Beautiful. I appreciate.
Yes.
Good show, but I think the country should remain united. I think we should stop getting excited about these senators and what they are doing, and we need to realize it's not like counties are going to die tomorrow simply because of this formula or the other formula.
Yes.
And this thing, like we are being held by senators, is something that Kenyans need to be told will end. It's just a matter of time, and they must not allow politicians to be running their lives as it were. Not this way anyway. But in the meantime, can people be careful about COVID-19?
Okay.
Basic protocols, let's follow them, and then because it's there and it's dangerous.
And I wanted to point out to Kamau that even Raila Odinga's bills and Kalonzo Musyoka's bills are being paid by government. So there's nothing wrong with the Deputy President also having his bills being paid by government. But anyway, go ahead and make your last remarks.
Thank you, viewers and everyone who has participated. This is our country. Okay. And it has been here for many, many years, and gonna be here after we are gone. What we need to be careful about is that now there are times we are not fathers. We are the fathers now, and we are the mothers. We need to take care of ourselves, how we do things, and how we want to leave them for the generation and generation to come. And I think that has been the President President Uhuru Kenyatta's way of communicating, because I would want my son to find and my daughter to find a better world that they can live in and enjoy and say, at least something was done for me to be on this floor. Thank you so very much, and have a good weekend.
All right, Jimmy Kagoni.
Mine is to thank the President for the action he took today to issue out the title deeds for the Bakassi Ranch that have taken ages and ages. And I'm glad to, because some of those members who are receiving the title deeds today are people, they are old, and some of them, they are relatives. And what you did, the President, the board action to ignore every other naysayer and all the people who are there who didn't want that to happen. Now at least, and I like even the way the President, you said, that we are actually releasing land worth more than 90 billion. Yep. 90 billion. That is going to be a game changer for sure. I know there are politicians who are not comfortable with that, and other land grabbers who are just waiting for those members to die so that they can take off. But then I'm glad that the President said sorry to you. Thank you very much.
All right. And of course, the Bakassi ranching problem being solved is part of the President's agenda of finishing up on these things. You remember we had Kehio Mwere some time ago, and those are issues too that he has tried to resolve. Let's hope the absentee landlords also will be dealt with this time as the President promised earlier today. Thank you very much. Charles Munyui. Thank you very much, Kamau Wakamau. Thank you, Jimmy Kagoni, for coming on. And thank you very much to Alan Wamalwa and Robert Kahindi. I call them our digital terrorists, and our technical team, led by our producer, Mwagi Boga, and the cameraman. Thank you very much for a good job. Have yourself a fantastic weekend. My name is John Jacob Kerry. Goodbye.